to watch this. It may take some time before they're able to completely stabilize her, although nope, it looks like they're taking her out right now. Let's watch this. This is unfolding live here. There she is. She's already on a backboard there, and she is conscious. She is communicating with the paramedics. She has been. The extent of her injuries, if she has any broken bones, that is unknown. What type of food or water she had in her car. Again, she was down in that canyon for 2 days since Monday, so a good 48 hours, and perhaps a really great happy ending here. She's being placed inside that litter or that Stokes basket, and essentially what that has is a vacuum that will pad her, so to speak. It'll keep her secure in that basket. They're going to tie her down tightly so that she will not move. Again, they did an initial assessment on her to determine any injuries, but they really won't know if she has anything broken until she gets a thorough look over at a nearby hospital here. She's being strapped in. She's conscious. A 40-year-old woman missing since Monday. Thankfully, her screams were heard. At least that's what we're hearing, that there were some people walking their dogs alongside the road here, along the side of Latigo Canyon Road here, and they heard her, and that's when they called authorities here, and she will be lifted up the side of this hill here. And we're going to watch this all unfold. Sky Fox first on the scene of this breaking news story here in Malibu Vista. Back to you.
All right, and Rick, if this works out the way we think it is working out, by the way, we want to let people know they're watching the Fox 11 News at 10 o'clock. But if this works out the way that we think it may work out, this is quite the remarkable rescue story.
It certainly is, because we've had so many tragic ones in the past. In fact, just last week, a car went over the side of Malibu Canyon. The driver of that automobile was killed. The car caught fire. But the first thing that I noticed, Tony and Roxy, when I arrived on scene here above Latigo Canyon, was that there was no fire. The car, although there are some dings and dents, but not too badly damaged. It doesn't appear that the car overturned. It went down that steep embankment, pushed through some of the chaparral, all the vegetation that's indigenous to the Santa Monica Mountains here in Southern California, but no real significant signs of damage. So that would tell us, and with the airbags there, that she was padded somewhat and didn't sustain perhaps life-threatening injuries. Still, how frightening to spend 2 days down below. And we've had stories where there have been drivers that did survive certain situations like this, only perhaps to die a few days later because nobody saw them, nobody found them. Whether or not she had a cell phone or cell phone service, that's unclear at this time. We believe she's from Simi Valley. Her family reported her missing on Monday when she did not return from a run or a hike that she told them that she was going to be on in this area. I stressed this earlier, and I always stress it when we cover missing hikers, people who go out solo. Always tell somebody where you're going to be. Always let them know what your path will be, what trail you're going to be on. That will help out in the case you find yourself in a similar situation.
Wow, it's unbelievable. When you first started reporting on this story, we were just, you know, our hope was that she would be alive, and to come to find out she's alive, she's communicating, she's talking to the rescuers is just such an incredible way to end this story. Her family must be thrilled.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when I first arrived, you know, my heart sank whenever you see a situation like this. And you can see the basket down below. She's been stabilized inside that basket. What type of treatment they gave to her, we don't know at this time, obviously, but the firefighter paramedics from the Los Angeles County Fire Department were inside talking to her, looking her over quickly. Now they've stabilized her in that litter. That basket is called a Stokes basket. And again, it has a vacuum around it so that it essentially stabilizes the victim inside the basket. She's not going to go anywhere. She's in great hands. She'll be lifted up the side of the hill, the same hill that we saw her rescuers rappel down about 30 minutes ago.
Rick, you said something that really stayed with me and caught my attention, and it's really important, and we hear it all the time, but people don't always adhere to it, and that is if you're going somewhere, particularly if you're going out somewhere where perhaps there aren't very many people around, it's outside of a normal urban area or someplace fairly remote, you should let people know exactly where it is you're going. You should try not to go alone if you can, but even if you can't, you should let people know exactly where you're going. Apparently, she did, if I heard you correctly, let her family know the general vicinity that she was going to be in, and even with that, it still took a while to find her.
Well, especially if you're in a place where there is perhaps not cell phone service, right? And
Which could very well be the case here.
that could have been the case because she's been there since Monday. Perhaps she was trying to call but had no way of communicating. And thankfully, as you mentioned, Rick, someone heard her apparently screaming. At least that's what we're hearing.
That's exactly right. And you're right, and I'm guilty. I've gone out on trails before and not always told anybody. It's so important to pass that information on. And more importantly, it is great to double up or triple up. Have some friends along if you go on a hike. But you know how we all are in terms of our schedules, and sometimes that doesn't happen. But this is it. Here we go. They are going to pull her up the side of the hill. And again, I've seen her make gestures at the paramedics. She is conscious. There's her car down below there. That Kia Sorento, this 40-year-old woman reported missing by her family about 48 hours ago, now coming up the side of the hill here, up towards Latigo Canyon Road, where her car went over the side on Monday.
And there's perhaps, if she's gesturing, she may actually not only be conscious, but
there's her hands moving right there.
Yeah, perhaps she's even somewhat lucid and is aware of what's going on.
That's exactly right, and this is amazing to watch this unfold because, as we stated earlier, so many times up here, so many tragic situations we have to cover up here in Sky Fox, many of which involve situations like this where cars go off the side of the freeway or down steep hills here in the Santa Monica Mountains, and this one is going to have a happy ending. There's some of the people that we saw on the side of the road in the upper right corner there, walking their dogs. Unclear if those were the ones that heard her screams. But what a story here, guys. 6 miles up Latigo Canyon Road here in Malibu Vista. This woman being pulled up the hill here, she's conscious, and she's in great hands with paramedics from the Los Angeles County Fire Department.
And we want to point out that you're watching this exclusively here on Fox 11, this very dramatic and miraculous in some ways rescue that we're watching right here. And Rick, do we know at this point where her family might be? Are they there? Do we know that?
We don't know that at this time. We do know that her home is in Simi Valley. I'm just getting a little bit more information right now. Her last name is Duran, Miss Duran here, 5 feet tall. She was last seen wearing a white halter top. At least that's what this report said, because this was the missing persons report that was issued with some hiking or tennis shoes on. And Simi Valley Police was handling this because that's her home, but this is the area where she ended up here off of Latigo Canyon Road in Malibu Vista. This is up in the Santa Monica Mountains here.
And you know, Rick,
and she's conscious.
Speaking of the weather the last couple of days, talk a little bit about that. How did that maybe help her or hurt her while she was waiting there to be rescued?
It's been so warm and so humid, and it's unclear if she actually got out of the vehicle at any time or if she was stuck in there, what she actually did. So whether or not the elements really had an impact on her or not, it's been very warm, very humid the last few days, as we all know here. And again, unclear on how much water she had. You know, if she was going for a hike or a run, as was reported initially. You know, hopefully she had a couple of bottles of water. But even then, was she able to reach them? All of that will be answered. And we have a ground crew heading up here as well. So we're going to definitely find out more about this woman's story in the coming hours.
And Rick, I'm curious, was there the option to airlift her out of there, or perhaps are her injuries not as severe as to require that, and that's why she's being transported by ambulance?
There's a combination of factors that play into that, Tony. The steepness of the terrain, the condition, whether or not the rescuers can actually pull her up on their own like they did in that litter, in that Stokes basket. Again, her name, Jennifer Duran. Let's put a name on this lady's face, and there she is, being wheeled into an ambulance. Looks like she has a neck brace on. Again, we saw those paramedics enter the car there. The first thing they're going to do is check on her condition. They're unclear if she has anything broken, but they're going to ask her, since they were able to, since she was able to communicate, what hurts, how are you feeling, what's going on? And what they'll do is they'll put that neck brace on. They'll stabilize her the best they can, just in case she has some broken bones. She's got that stiff neck. They stabilized her in that litter, in that Stokes basket. They pulled her up the side. She's in an ambulance and on her way to a hospital. Her family must just be elated, so relieved here off of Latigo Canyon Road. We saw this all develop exclusively up here in Sky Fox. What a great ending to the story.
What an incredible rescue. She's so lucky.
And they're right to take all the precautions they're taking, because, Rick, as we know with situations like this, people might be able to look well and okay, but there may be internal injuries.
That's exactly right. A little bit more information now. She was actually heading to the shore to do a run, but she told them that she'd be driving on this stretch of highway. So she wasn't going to be on a trail up here, but she was heading to Malibu, about 6 miles down below, and was going to go for a run on the beach, perhaps to beat the heat and the humidity that we've been experiencing. And that's when she went off. Well, widen out a little bit. Let me show you this tight curve here where she went over. It's unclear which way she was traveling, either up the hill, up towards the ridge, or down the hill. But that is a very tight bend there, and she did not make it and went down the side. But thankfully, she is now in great hands inside that ambulance and on her way to get treated at a nearby hospital.